Let me take you back to a lie wrapped in beauty, filtered through fame, and driven by desperation. Lissa Gaines, 29 years old, Tampa, Florida born. Online, she was stunning, powerful, untouchable. The kind of woman who posted rooftop brunches with a glass of champagne in hand, flawless selfies captioned with "Know Your Worth," and glammed up TikToks that made strangers envy her life. But what they didn't see was the eviction notice taped to her apartment door. What they didn't see were the credit cards maxed out past $18,000. What they didn't see was the fear crawling up her spine every time the phone rang, because she never knew if it was a creditor or rock bottom knocking. Behind that shimmering facade was a woman drowning, not in champagne, but in debt. Her job as a freelance makeup artist? Inconsistent at best. One month she had gigs, the next she had nothing. Rent in East Point, Georgia, where she now lived. Overdue. Again. But she had a phone. She had Instagram. She had a dream. And above all, she had ambition. Ruthless, relentless ambition. Across town, another story was unfolding. The kind built on quiet pain and honest work. Malcolm Reed, 42, widower, Decatur, Alabama native, owner of Reed's Auto Repair. After losing his wife, yet to a sudden illness in 2017, Malcolm didn't chase women. He didn't chase attention. He chased stability. He found solace under the hood of a car, gospel music on the radio, and quiet nights in a 3-bedroom home that still echoed with memories. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't foolish. But he was lonely, and that loneliness would cost him more than he could ever imagine. On November 5th, 2022, fate, or maybe something darker, stepped in. Malcolm was attending a charity fundraiser in Atlanta. It wasn't really his scene, but it was for a good cause, literacy programs for underprivileged kids. He believed in that. Lissa was there too, not as a donor, but as a guest of a former makeup client. That night, her Uber canceled. Malcolm, being the gentleman he was, offered her a ride home. Witnesses later said their interaction was sweet, simple, natural. Two strangers. A brief conversation. A kind gesture. What'd go wrong? Everything. That small act of kindness. That ride home. It became the first page of a nightmare. In the weeks that followed, they began texting. Friendly. Then flirty. He liked her energy. Her smile. The way she seemed to light up when he spoke. And her? She liked his house. His wallet. His vulnerability. Their first interdate was November 19th at the Optimist in Atlanta. Malcolm paid, he always did. And from the outside, it looked like the beginning of something real. But in a private message to a friend, Lissa wrote something that sent chills down investigators' spines. Finally, someone who handles things. No stress. She didn't see Malcolm. She saw opportunity. And Malcolm? He saw hope. A second chance. A reason to believe that life wasn't done surprising him with joy. He had no idea that this time, the surprise would be a bullet. At first, it was sweet. They texted constantly. Little jokes. Encouraging words. The kind of back and forth that makes you believe in something again, especially after years of silence. For Malcolm, every message felt like the gentle pull of hope. He hadn't dated seriously since losing yet. That kind of grief can seal a man off from the world. But Lissa? She cracked something open. She called him her peace. She said he made her feel safe. He believed her. They went out. Dinners, walks, cozy mornings with homemade pancakes. And even though she never reached for her purse, never offered to split a bill, Malcolm didn't mind. He thought he was building something. He thought, maybe this was real. By mid-December, she was staying over more than she wasn't. Clothes appeared in his closet. Her name started showing up on delivery packages, Wi-Fi logins, food apps. No formal conversation was had, no agreement. But somehow, she had moved in. Malcolm's sister, Trina, noticed immediately. He started showing up to family dinners in designer sneakers. Sneakers she knew he'd never buy for himself. Gold jewelry, new haircut, and suddenly, social events he'd always avoided were on his calendar, all with Lissa in tow. On Instagram, Lissa posted a photo of them together with the caption, "My king, my world." It looked like love. But Trina saw it differently. To her, it looked like a man being pulled out of his own life and placed into someone else's. Then came the spending. Between December 1st and New Year's Eve, Malcolm spent over $7,000 on luxury items, high-end restaurants, salon visits, shopping sprees, and every single one had Lissa's name written all over it. Before her, his bank statements were clean, predictable, mostly business supplies, home repairs, car parts. Now, designer labels, spa treatments, champagne brunches at rooftop venues. Even his longtime accountant flagged the changes. But Malcolm didn't care. He was smiling again. He told his friends, "She brings a light into my life I didn't think I'd ever see again." Meanwhile, Lissa was sending private messages to a close friend, describing her new situation as securing my future. That's all this was to her, security. On Christmas Day, Malcolm gave her a $2,500 diamond bracelet. She posted a selfie, the bracelet glinting in the sunlight, with a caption, "Blessed and highly favored." What she didn't post, the growing fatigue behind Malcolm's eyes, the way he'd stopped checking his own balance statements, the quiet sighs when she handed him a receipt with a smile that said, "You'll handle it, won't you?" At Christmas dinner with Trina and the rest of the family, the mask started to slip. Trina pulled Malcolm aside and said quietly, "Don't lose yourself trying to save someone who might only be saving themselves." Malcolm shook his head and smiled sadly. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said. "Yes, but not everyone deserves your entire life." And as the new year approached, that second chance was about to come with a price. A price Malcolm would pay in blood. January came, but peace did not. Malcolm Reed, once a simple, grounded man, was now spinning in a world that didn't feel like his own anymore. And it wasn't just the spending. It was the silence, the mood swings, the invisible leash around his neck. He had bought her a bracelet, but slowly, she was tightening a chain. Lissa wasn't working. Her makeup kit? It sat unused in a closet, gathering dust like yesterday's dreams. She didn't hustle anymore. She didn't try. Most days, she scrolled her phone, posted filtered selfies, and attended daytime brunches with captions like, "Manifesting abundance." But the only one manifesting anything was Malcolm. He manifested the money. He manifested the Hema. By now, Trina was more than concerned. Her brother, a man who once prided himself on discipline, on honor, had become a ghost in his own house. Tired eye. Then came the question that tipped the balance. Can you co? Not just any car. A 2023 PRIC. Malcolm. Lissa's response wasn't a conversation. It was. She vanished. No goodbye. No explanation. Just the only trace she left. A smear of L. If I'm not treated like a WH. For 3 days, Malcolm heard nothing. No, just S. Then, Valentine's Day. Fablewa. She carrying a Malcolm? EL. But, she told. But Malcolm didn't want to believe it. He see that love. He told a friend in a late-night text. She's scared? No. Why? Because on February 27th, Malcolm's bank flagged a strange transaction. $6,400 trans Jada Stokes. That name didn't ring a bell. But when Malcolm L. Old usernames, Facebook accounts, group chats from years ago, all had Liz. He confront. And what did she say? Not just rage. "You don't trust," she screamed. After everything, he had opened his heart, his home, his bank accounts. And now she stormed out. But this time, Malcolm didn't let it go. He reset passwords. He kaye, and qui. It wasn't love anymore. And for Lee, and March arrived like a warning shot. By now, Malcolm was done pretending. He canceled every shared card, locked down every digital wallet, changed the security system, and finally began reclaiming his life. But Lissa? She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just got quiet, dangerously quiet. The warmth drained from her voice. The affection evaporated. In its place, cold stares, snide comments, and a silence so sharp it could cut steel. She wasn't gone. Not yet. But she had retreated to the shadows inside that house. Malcolm would pass her in the hallway like a stranger. She wouldn't even look at him. And when she did speak, her words were poison dipped in sweetness. "You're punishing me," she said to a friend over text. "He's breaking my trust." Trust? She had drained his bank account, used fake identities, turned love into a financial transaction. And now, she was playing victim. Then came March 11th, the day everything cracked open. Lissa discovered text messages between Malcolm and a longtime client, a woman he'd worked with for years at the auto shop. The messages? Completely professional. Appointment scheduling. Car parts. Nothing more. But to Lissa, it was betrayal. That night, neighbors heard screaming, so loud it rattled windows. One neighbor called the police, reporting a domestic disturbance. Officers arrived to find both parties agitated, but not violent. No injuries, no arrests. But the tension? You could feel it in the walls. 2 days later, on March 13th, Malcolm himself called the police. Another verbal fight. More yelling. Still no charges. But this time, the officers gave him something more important than advice. They gave him a wake-up call. They explained how Georgia's tenancy laws worked. How, legally, Lissa had rights now. She'd been living there long enough. Her name was on deliveries, services, subscriptions. He couldn't just tell her to leave. And then, the next gut punch. She looked him in the eye, standing at the top of the staircase, and said, "This is my house, too." And legally, she wasn't entirely wrong. But what Malcolm didn't know was that Lissa had already taken it further. Investigators would later uncover surveillance footage from a hardware store in Decatur dated February 15th, just a day after her Valentine's Day return. There in grainy black and white was Lissa buying 2 blank keys and paying for cutting services under a fake name. She had copied the garage key, without permission, without a word, just quiet, careful preparation. And she wasn't done. On the evening of March 21st, at exactly 8:17 p.m., Lissa entered the garage alone. Security logs confirmed it. She stood in front of Malcolm's locked tools safe, the one he kept hidden behind the shelves. In her hand, a small silver key. Not to open it. Not yet. Just to study it. She examined the safe for 2 full minutes. Took photos. Zoomed in. Measured. Calculated. Digital forensics would later recover those images from her deleted files. Images of latches, bolts, the lock design, all hidden in a folder disguised as makeup tutorials. She didn't steal anything. Not yet. She was planning, plotting, not reacting. And in the days that followed, Lissa's moods became harder to read, swinging from forced politeness to ice-cold hostility. No more shopping sprees. No dates. Just tension thick enough to choke on. Malcolm stopped attending church, stopped visiting friends, started working late, anything to avoid going home. He was exhausted, hollow, a man shrinking inside his own skin. And meanwhile, Lissa was texting friends things like, "He thinks he can just erase me. Watch. It's my turn to win." Mental health experts later called it a shift from financial dependency to obsessive control. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about power. She didn't want to leave. She wanted to rule. And Malcolm? He still wanted peace. He even texted her, calmly, respectfully, offering to let her return to collect her things. To end things peacefully. To move on. She agreed. But peace was never what she had in mind. March 23rd, 2023. A date Malcolm Reed would never forget. Not because of what happened that day, but because of what nearly ended his life. It began with a simple text. Malcolm sent it at 2:14 p.m., trying to keep things calm. Civil, final. "I'll be home at 7 o'clock. Be quick." That was it. A courtesy. A closing door. An attempt at peace. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Lissa had already made other plans. Plans that didn't include closure. Plans that didn't leave room for his future. At 6:57 p.m., she arrived. Surveillance footage later confirmed every detail. Black leggings, sandals, a small white purse. Her expression? Calm, cold, focused. Malcolm met her in the driveway. They walked inside together through the kitchen door. No yelling, no tension, Not yet. But that was just the mask. Because the moment they stepped out of the camera's view, the tone shifted. It started with words, the kind dipped in venom. She accused him of using her, of playing her, of letting her believe she mattered, only to toss her aside. She talked about time, sacrifice, about what she gave up for him. Malcolm didn't yell. He didn't rage. He simply looked at her, tired, heartbroken, and said the last sentence he'd ever say as the man he was. I'm not paying for you anymore. And then it happened. At 7:42 p.m., according to the forensic timeline, Lissa reached into her purse, pulled out a small pistol, and fired a single round into Malcolm's head, point blank. The bullet tore through his left temple. Malcolm collapsed immediately, his body hitting the tiled kitchen floor with a sickening, bone-shattering thud. Across the street, a neighbor heard the bang. Then silence. Then a groan, barely audible through the walls. At 7:45 p.m., 911 received the first call. It sounded like a gunshot and someone falling. But by the time officers arrived, 7:52 p.m., Lissa was gone. Gone. She didn't call 911. She didn't scream for help. She didn't even check if he was breathing. Instead, she opened his Venmo app and used his money to pay for a rideshare. Yes, she shot him in the head and used his wallet to escape. Phone data later confirmed her route, speeding away toward Birmingham, Alabama. Before midnight, she had checked into the Fairview Inn motel using the name Nicole Sharp, a fake ID, a different wig, and a new man at her side. This wasn't panic. This was a plan. Back in Atlanta, paramedics rushed Malcolm to Grady Memorial Hospital. He was unconscious, bleeding, his brain swelling under the pressure of trauma. Surgeons fought for hours to keep him alive, and somehow miraculously they did. But the damage? Catastrophic. He would never walk the same way, never speak the same way, never be the same again. Meanwhile, Lissa was settling into a motel room like nothing had happened. In her bag, the .380 pistol, safety off, $2,740 in cash, 2 synthetic wigs, and, unbelievably, the silver key to Malcolm's garage safe. When officers finally arrested her, 36 hours later, she didn't run. She didn't cry. She didn't say a word. She just sat down as if she knew it was only a matter of time. And maybe she did. But what she hadn't counted on was that Malcolm Reed would survive. He would live. And one day, he would speak. In the quiet aftermath of chaos, the evidence began to speak. Malcolm lay in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. Machines beeped. Tubes snaked around his body. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, but his heart still beat. He was still here. And that was enough. Because while he clung to survival, investigators began piecing together the trail Lissa had left behind, a trail as cold and calculated as the shot she fired. The first thing they traced? That ride she paid for with his money, 7:48 p.m., just minutes after the gunshot. A Venmo payment to a private driver. Destination, Birmingham, Alabama. Then came the motel check-in. Fairview Inn, off a quiet road, just outside the city. She used a fake name, Nicole Sharp, and a counterfeit ID. Surveillance footage showed her walking through the lobby, calm as ever, accompanied by a man investigators would later identify as an online acquaintance, someone she'd met just weeks earlier through a dating app. Inside her bag, officers later found the .380 caliber pistol, the very one that tore through Malcolm's skull. A roll of cash, $2,740, mostly in $20s and $50s. 2 synthetic wigs, one blonde, one black. And, perhaps most disturbingly, the silver key to Malcolm's garage safe. She hadn't just tried to kill him. She'd prepared for a life after him. Investigators dug deeper into her online activity, her search history, her deleted files. What they found was damning. In the days before the shooting, Lissa had searched for temporary housing options, how to create an alias legally, prepaid debit cards without ID, and, most chillingly, can brain damage affect memory of events? There was no emergency call from her, no message to the police, no sign of regret, just a clean escape attempt. And while Lissa tried to disappear, the justice system closed in. When she was apprehended, 36 hours after the shooting, she offered no resistance. She didn't flinch, didn't speak. During booking, she refused to answer questions. She invoked her right to remain silent. No statement, no apology, nothing. Her first public words would come weeks later, in the form of a courtroom defense. She would claim self-defense. Her lawyers would paint Malcolm as controlling, emotionally abusive, volatile. They would try to turn the victim into the villain. But the evidence had its own story. Ballistics showed the gun was fired from just 2 feet away, directly into Malcolm's head. The safety was off. The gun was loaded, and it had been hidden, not on a shelf or in a drawer, but inside her purse. Expert witnesses testified that the act of drawing and firing a weapon from that position at that distance in that time frame was not spontaneous. It was deliberate, premeditated. And then came a testimony that would stop the courtroom cold. Malcolm Reed. Months had passed. He had undergone emergency surgery, months of therapy, and round-the-clock care. The man who once ran a respected auto repair business now struggled to speak, struggled to feed himself, struggled to remember the details of a life he used to live. But with the help of a speech therapist, with the help of flashcards and visual aids, Malcolm took the stand. And when the prosecutor asked the question that the entire room was waiting for, "Did you ever threaten Lissa Gaines?" Malcolm looked up, tears in his eyes, and mouthed a single word. "Never." The silence that followed was unbearable. Not a cough, not a whisper, just the truth, raw and undeniable. This wasn't a woman cornered. This wasn't a desperate act. This was a performance, a con with a gun, and the man who trusted her was left broken on his own kitchen floor. The trial began on November 6, 2023, at DeKalb County Superior Court in Georgia. By now, the case had gained traction across social media, local news, and crime forums nationwide. Not just because of the crime, but because of the face behind it. Lissa Gaines, the glamorous Instagram star, the blessed and highly favored queen of filtered selfies, was now on trial for attempted murder. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, bloggers, strangers who once followed her for beauty tips, now leaned forward to watch her unravel. The prosecution came out swinging, led by Assistant District Attorney Monica Fields. Their strategy was simple. Tell the truth. All of it. They laid out a timeline, tight, undeniable, digital and physical evidence intertwined like clockwork. Surveillance footage, bank statements, text messages, photos, aliases, the gun. Then came the bombshell messages from an encrypted app, deleted but recovered. February 2023, just weeks before the shooting, Lissa had sent this to a friend. "He's slow, but he pays. I'm stacking. Let that sink in. Not he loves me. Not I'm scared. Just I'm stacking. Money. Control. The long con." And Malcolm? He wasn't just a victim. He was the target. Trina Reed, Malcolm's sister, took the stand with quiet fury. She spoke about the man Malcolm used to be, steady, reliable, hopeful. She described the changes, the sudden designer purchases, the withdrawal from family, the ghost of a brother she barely recognized. And when she read aloud the warning she gave him, "Don't lose yourself trying to save someone who might only be saving themselves," the courtroom went still. But it was the financial experts who nailed the picture to the wall. They testified that Malcolm's spending habits didn't just shift, they detonated. Luxury purchases, app transfers, car cosign attempts, all pointing to financial grooming. Then came Detective Samuel Carter, lead investigator. He broke it down with clinical precision. The garage key duplication, the secret examination of the safe, the weapon found loaded in her purse, the ride booked minutes after the shot, paid for with Malcolm's own money, the alias check-in, the wigs, the cash. Everything pointed to planning. This wasn't panic, he told the court. This was escape. But Lissa's defense team tried to turn the tide. They called her vulnerable, alone, a woman abandoned by her family, manipulated by an older man. They painted a picture of emotional abuse, subtle, invisible. They insisted she feared for her life. But there was a problem. The evidence didn't agree. There were no defensive wounds on her body. No bruises, no scratches, No past police reports. No photos. No witnesses. Just one bullet. And a very loud silence afterward. The bullet trajectory? Direct. Deliberate. 2 feet away. No struggle. No chaos. Just execution. And then, Malcolm's voice again. This time recorded from his hospital bed. Painfully slow. Speech slurred. But clear. When asked if he had ever hurt Lissa, or threatened her, he mouthed it again. Never. It was over. The jury deliberated for just 5 hours. On November 15th, they returned the verdict. Guilty. Aggravated assault. Attempted murder. Unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. The courtroom didn't erupt. It fell silent. Lissa showed no emotion. She stared forward, still, as if waiting for someone else to fix it. As if none of this, the lies, the blood, the betrayal, was real. But it was. And justice had arrived. On January 18th, 2024, she stood before the judge for sentencing. 28 years in a state prison. No possibility of parole for the first 20. Judge Carla Winslow didn't hold back. She called it a performance of affection, designed to exploit trust for gain. A manipulation so deep, it nearly cost a man his life. When offered a chance to speak, Lissa said nothing. No apology. No explanation. No emotion. She simply sat down and waited to be taken away. After the verdict, there was no celebration. There was no victory. No relief. Only the heavy truth of what had been lost forever. Lissa Gaines, once a rising influencer, now sat behind bars at Pulaski State Prison in Hawkinsville, Georgia. A number. A jumpsuit. A long sentence. She never granted an interview. Never made a public statement. And according to prison records, spent most of her early weeks in administrative segregation. Isolated, quiet, unreadable. But the internet hadn't forgotten her. Days after her sentencing, an old video resurfaced on social media. A short Instagram clip posted in December 2022, just weeks before the shooting. Lissa, dressed in silk, glass of wine in hand, clinks her glass toward the camera and says, smiling, "If you ain't upgrading my life, you're downgraded in it." The video went viral. Over 3 million views in under a week. To some, it was ironic. To others, chilling. But for those who knew the story, it was a haunting prophecy. Meanwhile, Malcolm Reed's life had changed forever. After being discharged from Grady Memorial Hospital in August 2023, he moved in with his sister, Trina. His condition? Devastating. Paralyzed on the right side. Speech severely impaired. Requires full-time care. He can no longer run his auto repair business, the place that once gave him purpose, independence, pride. By September, the shop was sold. The proceeds went to medical bills, therapy, and legal fees. Trina became his world now, his sister, his caregiver, his advocate. In a rare interview with a local Atlanta station, Malcolm, with the help of a speech therapist, managed to say just one full sentence. One that silenced the studio. I saw her as a partner. She saw me as an ATM. No bitterness, just fact. A quiet truth from a man who once believed love could heal, and instead learned it could nearly destroy. Friends and former clients organized fundraisers to support his recovery. A GoFundMe campaign, community car washes, donations left at churches. People cared, but it was never enough, because no amount of money could return what had been taken. Malcolm will never regain full use of his body. He will never run his shop, never drive down the highway with gospel music on full blast, windows down, wind in his hair. And the most painful truth, he still asks about her. Not with anger, not even with hate, just confusion. Because for all the lies, all the manipulation, all the betrayal, he loved her. He really did. And that is the cruelest twist of all. Lissa Gaines didn't just steal from him. She didn't just shoot him. She shattered the idea that kindness protects you, that love is safe, that giving someone the best of you means they'll give it back. Trina later released a short statement through her attorney. Our focus is on Malcolm's healing, however long that takes. Justice was served, but there are no winners in a case like this. And she's right, because when you peel away the headlines, the social media posts, the courtroom sound bites, what you find is wreckage. Not just a man's shattered body, but his shattered trust, shattered faith, shattered future. Lissa Gaines will serve 28 years. But Malcolm Reed? He's serving a life sentence of his own. A sentence of silence, of therapy, of having to relearn the basic things he once did without thinking, walking, talking, trusting. And that is the real tragedy. This wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a sudden fight. It was slow, calculated, deadly, a blueprint for betrayal. So the next time someone tells you a story that sounds too picture-perfect to be real, remember Malcolm. Remember the cost of trust. And remember this: sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who smile the brightest.